So I just finished the early access chapters of Life is Strange Double Exposure, and as somebody who's a big fan of the original game when it came out, I've always kind of hoped that we would get a follow-up at some point. But of course, the series went down the anthology route with Life is Strange 2 and True Colors, and I had mixed feelings about both of them. I didn't really care for the second one too much, but True Colors I did overall enjoy. My review is up on the channel, and they've had comic series and stuff that I've reviewed as well. But overall, I've been waiting to see what actually happened to Max and Chloe, and here we finally get to see the answer to that with Double Exposure. So we only got the first 2 episodes here, and you had to pay $30 extra, which I'm not a fan of having this tiered system where you have to pay $30 more to play it 2 weeks early, just the first 2 episodes. So I think it's kind of a scummy business practice, but I did it just for the purpose of making this video. But this is not a full review because we only have 40% of the game, because there's 5 episodes in total. So I've played the first 2 now, and the first episode is setting up Max has a new murder mystery to solve. We get to know all of the characters that are in this place. We got a new university, another school setting. Max is a professor this time. It's 9 years after the original game, and we now see an older Max, and I do like that it is kind of exactly how long it's been since the original game. I was around the same age as the characters in the first game when I played that, and now I'm still the same age, so it's kind of like it's aged up with me, and I think that that was kind of a smart move. And it takes us out of the coming of age story era with the previous Life is Strange installments, and now we're playing as an adult. So it's a different feel, but it still preserves the cartoony art style, the intimate indie music, and the sentimental vibes, and just the kind of the quirky characters with the funny dialogue. So I think that they really kind of nailed the aesthetic with still being an adult story now. So I think that they struck a good balance there. So that first episode is introducing us to the new characters. We of course have to get to care about the character who eventually ends up getting murdered, which is of course Max's best friend. And then we find out in the second episode that we have a new power, and that is the power to go between 2 different parallel universes, one where this character is alive and one where she is dead. So this is not a new idea in gaming. This kind of started with Titanfall 2 had this level where you could switch between the 2 universes, and that was definitely something that stood out in that game, and it's been used several times since then, and even Starfield had a level like that. So this is not a new concept, and it's used similarly here, but I do think that it is the glue that holds this game together, and it is the unique story device here that we have. And they do lean a bit more into the sci-fi elements. It seems like we're going to be doing something extra with the parallel universe aspect, so I'm really curious to see where it ends up going. But the gameplay of it is kind of similar to how it's been in other games where you've seen this concept, where, you know, maybe there's an obstacle in the way in one universe, you switch to the other universe, and the obstacle's gone, you go past, and now you can switch back to the other one on the other side. There are only fixed parts of the game, like you have to stand in a certain spot in order to actually switch between the universes, so it's not like you can just do it at any time on a dime, which I think makes sense from a production standpoint. It actually makes some of the stuff a little bit more challenging, the fact that you can't just do it everywhere. But I think it's cool that this game does give you more to explore than previous installments, and they did this with True Colors as well, where you're a bit more free to roam the town. Here you have the university, you have the outside of the university, and you have 2 wings of the university, and you can kind of go in any order that you want to see. You can explore a lot and at your own pace, and there are 2 versions of each area that you're in with these 2 universes. So that feels really cool, and they actually do make the 2 universes distinct because they feel different. And, you know, it's not just like the same thing with some slight differences. It is like a different color scheme, where one universe has different weather. It's snowing a lot more. That's the dead universe where Safi is dead. And then in the universe where she's still alive, it's a lot brighter, and the Christmas party that is about to come up, because it is in the holiday season, has been canceled because of the murder of the student. So in the dead world, there are no decorations around, and in the live world, they do have decorations around. So I think that that's really smart, although I do question story-wise if it really would be a good idea to cancel all of the festivities when people are at their lowest. But in terms of gameplay design, it makes a lot of sense to have something where there's a visual signifier of which world you're in. So I think that that makes a lot of sense, and I do like kind of the more puzzle-oriented gameplay as opposed to what we had in like True Colors and Before the Storm, which were Deck Nine's previous installments of this game. We do have a bit more when it comes to how you approach every situation. Now, it is not a puzzle game. I wouldn't say that it is, but I do like that we have some parts. But I do like the basic gameplay of just exploring the environment, looking at objects, talking to people, making those choices that feels significant. But you don't have the rewind this time because Max lost her power after the first game. So you have to just deal with your situation. No matter what choice you pick, you have to deal with it. So it feels like it has a bit more weight to it. Now, none of the choices in this first episode really got me, where there were several choices in the original game, like the end of chapter 2, the original one with Kate. Like, I was just like, I have to save Kate. Like, I was so focused on that. And also just smaller things. There were some choices that really stunned you in your tracks. This one, not so much, but I am really intrigued by the mystery that we have and the intrigue with the different professors. And I like this new cast of characters. I think it's pretty interesting overall. And as someone who went through a liberal arts school myself, and was in that environment when I went to film school, a lot of these professors feel like real people to me. So I really like that. And the thing that struck me the most about this game, I think the one thing that is worth noting above anything else, is how the facial animations and motion capture acting is just exceptional here. Like, the level of detail in their facial animations is just setting a new bar for the industry. And this is coming out at the same time as Silent Hill 2 Remake, which is doing the same thing in that game with just incredible acting and seeing the level of detail, like the subtle micro expressions, the eyes chasing around the room, the like half smile, just the detail in the directing and the acting choices that definitely show here. Each character has their own distinct way of walking and moving and their own little quirks. So I think that that definitely stands out more than anything. The cartoony art style is not photorealistic, but sometimes that acting motion capture quality is so good that it will make you feel that uncanny valley thing where it's like, dang, I'm almost like watching real people right now, because in a way you are. So I think that that is really good to see, and it bodes well for the future of the industry when it comes to these story-oriented experiences with a lot of acting in them. So I love to see them continuing to raise the bar in regards to that. So overall, I do like the cast of characters. Like I said, I think that the humor is really good, and there's a good balance between, you know, kind of a little bit of the cuteness and the cringiness. You know, I think there's a good balance there. It's going to be different for different folks, but if you like the old ones, I think you're going to be fine with this. There are a couple lines here and there that definitely made me cringe a little bit, you know, when they reference like F's in the chat or something like that. So your mileage may vary, but overall, it is definitely like pretty solid from a writing standpoint in terms of the dialogue. So I'm definitely intrigued by it. There are a few things in the story that bug me. We'll get to the lack of Chloe that's going to bother a lot of people. We'll get to that at the end. One of the things that bugged me the most was in the second episode towards the end. No spoilers or anything, just like vaguely talking about it. There's like an investigator also trying to solve the murder, and this guy is supposedly like a bad dude, or the game wants you to think that he is, even though he's kind of right in what he's trying to do, and he seems to just be trying to do his job well. So it's almost like the game expects you to have this anti-police sentiment, but the character doesn't earn that. So I don't know how I feel about that. I mean, the situation that you're in where you're trying to stop him from what he's trying to do makes sense in context, but out of context, you're just like, I feel like that character is doing the right thing. I'm kind of on his side. So this might be one of those reversal things where they try to show later on that he's actually a good dude. But I don't know. There's something there where it's probably just the biases of the people creating this game and it definitely shows in those scenes. But in general, I think that the story is intriguing. I especially love the cliffhanger that they leave you on at the end of this early access. Really, really good twist, and I'm really excited to see what they do with that. It almost seems like we're going to do more with the sci-fi concept of the two universes than what I initially maybe anticipated. So it's more than just a gameplay mechanic. It seems like it's going to have a bit more implications in the story as well, but we'll have to wait and see. Now, of course, we have the concept of the storm in the original game, so I think that there's going to be some repercussions for this power that Max is using based on that alone. So it's definitely intriguing, a great ending, and it's a story that I'm really curious to learn more about. So I'm happy about it. I feel like Max is a great rendition of the character. You see some progression from where she has been, but it's still the same Max. You know, maybe she just got out of her shell a little bit, but still, like, it's the same character, just progressed. And I think that it was a great performance from the actress as well. So definitely great across the board, new cast and stuff. And it's also worth noting that this game has good visuals as well. There's a lot of detail in the environment. It's an art town with the liberal arts school and everything, so you get to see a lot of unique looking art in the wings of the college, as well as this bar that you go to a lot. So I think that that's pretty good. Two of the other characters, we get a love interest. We get a male love interest and a female love interest. The bartender, Amanda, and Vin, this kind of guy who is like the president of the local fraternity, you could say. So we get that aspect. There's a lot of minor characters as well. Everybody seems to have secrets in this, which I think bodes well for the story as well. Safi seems to have a lot of secrets, as well as the professors that you're investigating, the suspects. So I like the twist so far, and I think that it's going to be interesting to continue this investigation. I'm very much looking forward to it. So a couple negatives that are worth pointing out. The technical side of things, it's worth saying that the game at launch on PC, where I'm playing it, it doesn't perform the greatest, and it actually had a problem where it crashed when you switched universes, aka the most important mechanic in the game. And if you had your settings set to medium or low, it would crash. So they've seemed to have fixed it now, or at the very least they have a note that tells you which settings to use if you're experiencing crashes. So it's one of those things where you're paying extra to be a guinea pig for these companies. So, but again, I don't recommend getting the Ultimate Edition with the early access. You know, it's definitely better to wait when it comes to games like this. But in general, it's definitely seems like it's worth the price of admission so far, but we'll have to wait and see how the rest of the game shakes out. So is this going to measure up to the cast of the original game? I mean, I like the character of Moses. I like Safi. There's characters you'll definitely like along the way, but will they measure up to the original one? We'll have to see how the rest of the game goes to really judge that. So the one big elephant in the room that we have to address is the character of Chloe, which is a lot of people's favorite character in the game. And there is, of course, the decision at the end of the first game where it's like, do you sacrifice the whole town to the storm, or do you let Chloe die? And you have that choice at the end. So this game has to address that in some way. So this game lets you pick in dialogue which ending you had in the original one, and whether or not Chloe is in it is going to depend on that. And now, so far, Chloe hasn't appeared herself other than flashbacks, but we do see like text messages from her, and we do see social media posts from her, which is just another cool way that they show these characters, and you get to see their personalities and stuff on social media, which I really like. But Chloe's not herself in the story if you chose her to be alive, because she has in fact broken up with Max in this game. So that is something that a lot of people are just going to have a hard line, like, nope, I don't like it. But then again, we don't know for sure that they aren't going to have that change in the later episodes. But as of right now, that's what we're working with. So there is something to be said for that. A lot of people are just going to reject that offhand. I've always been of the mindset, just thinking about the characters and what they went through, that based on the trauma that they collectively experienced together, that it would be kind of hard, very difficult to have a relationship long term and move past all of that. And there's a lot to process there. And a lot of couples will have difficulty moving past a traumatic thing like that because the person that reminds you of all those things is the person that you see every day. So that's something I think that I view differently than most of the fan base probably. And you got to remember the guilt they would carry over a town of people dying as a result of the choices that they made, I think would be very difficult, especially for somebody like Chloe, who is prone to lashing out. And she definitely, like, she blamed her father for dying, you know, and of course she can change over the course of 10 years, but I view her as the type of person who would definitely have moments of self-doubt when it comes to that. Like, did I really deserve to live over this whole town? And I think that it's going to be a difficult thing to deal with. Now, they don't address a lot of that stuff head on so far. I would really like them to deal with the guilt of the storm and the decision that Max made. I don't feel that they adequately have done that. And the reasoning that they gave for the breakup in the game itself was that Chloe wants to look ahead to the future and Max is stuck in the past, which is true to her character in that, you know, the whole rewind ability was symbolic of her constantly trying to reach into the past. So I think that that makes sense, but it does feel like it needs a bit more justification. But I think as the story goes, I'm hoping at least that we'll get into that, because I think that it makes sense for these characters not to be together. Even before all of the trauma, they have a lot of compatibility issues. You know, Chloe is somebody who I think struggles with personal relationships with pretty much anybody, and she is somebody who is very chaotic. She's prone to lashing out, like I said, whereas Max is a lot more subdued, and she's definitely like a more introverted, shy person, and she definitely likes a lot more order than Chloe does. So, you know, there's all these times in life where two people really love each other, but they just aren't compatible. And I tend to view them that way. And I'm open to that being the story. But I would like to see a bit more of the reason why that didn't really work out in the long run. And don't forget that in a lot of the first game, Chloe made Max do a lot of things that she wasn't comfortable with through slightly manipulative tactics. Now, she wasn't necessarily like consciously aware that she was doing that, but there are definitely things that she would push Max to do that she's not comfortable with. And I think in a long-term situation, that wouldn't necessarily fly, and they would come to blows about something like that. And there's also just the fact that a story, you need to withhold certain things. So it makes sense, in my view, to have a story where it isn't the happily ever after when it starts. You know, if you have this perfect relationship between the two of them, it makes it feel like the story's already fulfilled. You know, there doesn't need to be something that Max needs to seek out. You know, if it's somebody gets murdered and, you know, we still have Chloe, though, it just doesn't feel as intense. Like, we need to figure out what happened here. We kind of need Max to be isolated. But a lot of people would look at that and say, oh, well, then we don't need this story at all. And I just disagree with that, because I come from the aspect of like realism, looking at how these characters are characterized, whereas I think a lot of people kind of view it as a wish fulfillment thing, which, you know, hey, that's your prerogative. But I think it's a richer story when it is not avoiding the uncomfortable things that happen in life. You know, I think that's what made the original one so good, was it had this veneer of innocence, and then once you get to the deeper layers of it, there's some dark stuff there, and there's definitely uncomfortable things there. So I think that that's good. You don't want it just to be this just feel-good story necessarily all the time. So I think you have to strike a balance. So that's just my opinion on it, and most of the fan base is going to disagree with me on that, which is fine. I own it. But all that being said, I would be very surprised if Chloe does not at least make a cameo in some way or another, whether that's a flashback, whether that's one of these alternate universes we go to, that she's there, still alive, even if you pick the ending where she's dead, or if it's a flashback or a dream scene or something. I'm fairly certain she's going to be in the game, guys. I would be surprised if she's not. So it's my opinion, that will, like, I'm like 90% certain that's going to happen. We'll have to wait and see if I'm right, but you remember how the original game ended where we started to get this surrealist dream state type stuff? I have a feeling we're going to replicate that with this one, especially once the lines start blurring between the universes, like how they did in the original one when Max is like flipping back and forth between the different timelines. I almost am certain that something that is going to happen there. That's me, and I'm also the type of guy I'm open to a story being a tragedy. You know, I think that that's interesting. You know, I don't need a happy ending to feel good about it. So that's just my opinion on it. I do think that we'll have to wait and see how it turns out regardless. So that's just my opinions on the lack of Chloe in the story. But in general, this game I think is pretty solid so far, and it has the potential to be the best sequel since the first one. So I'm very much looking forward to the rest of the game coming out in a couple weeks. So definitely let me know what you guys think in the comments section. I would just ask that you keep spoilers out of it for people that haven't played it yet, but I'm definitely intrigued by that ending, and I would love to discuss it with you guys maybe in a future video. But with that, I think I've covered it enough. Definitely let me know your opinions, and with that, it's been your boy Shuggy, and we'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching, everybody. Peace out.